Health Siren presents how to stay healthy and free from disease. Presenting a part of series of talks on health, healthy living and how to manage the body towards that end. This talk is about our body, immunity, its benefits, and understanding our bodies better.
Last time we talked about the powerful statement, the more you know, the more you realize how little you know. And we explained it a bit. We won't go into that again. We also clarified that I have considered myself the founder of the concept of staying healthy and free from disease. And we made reference to the fact that this is not a new concept, it has been there for eons, and we are just trying to bring it back alive and kicking today. We concluded last time with talking about change, and we talked about what can't we change. So we can't change the bone size, but we can influence strength. We cannot overcome deformities that are there from birth. We cannot change the genetic imprint of a person, neither can we change the blood group. But the things we can change, and we talked about things that depend on our working physiology. So things like breath, breathing, muscles, diet, digestion, sleep, mental processes like reading, writing, thinking, emotions, etc. actually influence our body to change our physiology in terms of the parameters of health, which is our blood investigations like hemoglobin, red blood cells, white blood cells, sodium, potassium balance, etc. We will move on now to, when we talk about change, we need to understand what are the criteria for change. So when we look at the criteria for change, the first and foremost thing we need to look at is acceptance of the philosophy. We need to look at and understand that if I accept the philosophy that I have to change, it has to become part of me. It can't just be something external. So I need to convince myself that I need to change. Once I accept that philosophy, then the first question that arises is, I need to know my body. So I need to understand my body and its working to help me consider what I need to change. When we start looking at what we do want to change and how we implement it, then it becomes important to apply it regularly. So a disciplined lifestyle has to come about so that whatever needs to be done, we do it on a daily basis. As you start getting a disciplined life and implement these changes one by one, you do find that you start nipping issues in the bud before they arise. So you might find that certain gases that you might have may be released quicker, you might feel more energetic, your tiredness has disappeared, etc. Now, as the changing scenario of health happens, we also start to become content with what we have because we are happy, we feel comfortable, and we should try to become content with what we have. And then the most important thing is, as contentment arises to the level required, we become accepting of the fact that we need to learn to live within our physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual limits of our ability, of our bodies. What do we mean by that? Suppose I've got a physical ability to work for 8 or 10 or 12 hours maximum. Then I should manage my health in that scenario. If I overstep the mark and start working 2 jobs or start working long shifts and work 15, 16 hours a day, maybe over time I'm going to feel run down and I'm beginning to transgress the limits of my body's ability, and naturally then it is going to show that my health is influenced negatively. Let us move on and take one at a time. The acceptance of philosophy. When we talk about acceptance of philosophy, when it comes to health, my observations of the last 20-25 years has been quite interesting. We all as human beings take a lot of care of everything around us, whether it's a machine, whether it's pets, whether it's the home, whether it's gadgetry like mixers, etc. And I've just taken 3 examples of a motorbike or a scooter, two-wheeler, a machine operating in an industrial setup, or a beautiful car. Now we all know that all these machines need to be well cared for. They need to be tuned regularly to maintain them in perfect order. They need to be oiled, maintained, checked, repaired from time to time to get the optimum performance irrespective of age. It has been well noted across all machine users that a well-maintained, well-oiled machinery can give you a longer life and sustainable use of the same equipment without having any issues. Same goes with mixers that we use at home. As soon as we use a mixer, we actually wash it and keep it clean so that the mechanism doesn't rust and stop working efficiently. The interesting thing which appears to be with all of us, including me at times, is that when it comes to accepting that philosophy and applying it to human beings, we tend to do it in stops and starts. What do I mean by that? If I need to do some regular exercise or regular breathing exercises or regular diet maintenance or sleep on time or have a routine life which is systematic, we all tend to err there and give it a miss from time to time, and this is one of the reasons that causes our bodies to suffer. So we need to have a well-oiled plan for our body that takes care of everything and treat it like a machine. What are the things we are looking at when we look at the human body, and what do we understand about the human body? The first and most important thing to make note of is I believe the human body is phenomenal. Now, why do I say it's phenomenal? In my experience as a health practitioner, in my experience as a human being who has seen people grow, it always amazes me that people's ability to heal from so-called irreversible illnesses is just amazing. We tend to call it miraculous, but in reality, it is the hard work that is done by the person concerned who decides to change his philosophy, accept a new philosophy, implement it religiously, and find that the fruits of his labor is eventually found in his cure from incredible odds. The other area that I find very interesting is you have a child who grows up into an adult, and if they have been physically growing themselves stronger, their bodies grow stronger, their bones are stronger, their muscles grow bigger, etc. If they have neglected that aspect of their life, you find that they are not as strong as they could be. For people who have grown and developed into concentration or emotional management or mental skills, you find that that area has grown. So again, it is very important to note that when we use things and when we make them grow, our bodies can adapt and grow phenomenally. To clarify this example, I've added 2 photos here. If you look at the little child or boy in the upper photo, you will find that he looks very skinny. If you look at the photo below, it's a strong man. Of course he's a strong man. He used to be Mr. Universe for many years and created records in bodybuilding and body beautiful areas of competition. He is none other than Arnold Schwarzenegger, and even today, after acting in so many movies and becoming a governor of California, if you look at his pictures, he still looks fit and healthy. I don't know whether you will believe that the boy in the picture above is the same Arnold Schwarzenegger, who when he was a child was told by his doctors, because he was a sick child, that the only way to improve yourself is to do exercise. He started doing exercise, improved his health, got rid of his condition, then decided never to give up exercise, and today is where you see him. The other area that we need to be aware of, the human body has got incredible number of things within it. Just to give you a brief count, we got a few trillion cells, which we can't keep track of course in varying capacities, but they are still cells. Our bodies carry a few trillion bacteria as well, and a few trillion viruses as well. But none of them seem to affect us that negatively. So obviously there must be some good ones, bad ones. There must be some ones which trigger at different times, and other times they are all okay. They are just waiting in our bodies to stay looking for shelter. And if the opportunity comes by us dropping our immunity and letting them overcome us, then we will be overcome by disease. Now, when I talked about these large numbers of so many trillions of cells and so many trillions of bacteria and viruses, etc., there is some philosophy. Philosophers tend to look at it from a slightly different perspective. And there have been comments made that the body is so intricate that it is actually a reflection of the cosmos or the universe around us. Now, this is a bit far-stretched, at least beyond my understanding, but that is what people have said. So let us just leave it at that. Now, when we started talking about understanding of the working of the body, we need to know a few things of how the body is dependent on different factors that change us. The first and foremost parameter that we look at is the pH levels. pH levels in the blood, which is the acid-base level, and it's generally between 7.35 and 7.45, preferably above 7.42. And a lot of these criteria that I'm going to list further on influence our pH and influences our health. So let us look at these parameters that we are talking about. I've listed only some of them. So let's look at breathing. Breathing influences us. So if we breathe shallow, if we breathe deep, if we breathe very deep, we can influence our health. Exercise influences us, which is why there is a constant reminder from every corner to say you must exercise at least 20 minutes, at least half an hour, ideally 1 hour a day, to keep the body machine working well. Eating is a big factor. Of course, if I starve, it's not going to do great for my body. But if I overeat also, it's not going to be good. The way I eat is also important. And we'll be touching on all these in detail as we go along in future videos. Then the digestive system, I refer to as the food system. It's very important to understand that and how it works and how we are abusing it. And we will touch on that further on. Because diet is part of the food system, I've included it under that. So what we eat, so whether we eat raw food, whether we eat cooked food, whether we eat overcooked food, whether we eat preserved food, whether we eat cereals, whether we eat vegetarian, non-vegetarian, etc., comes into it, and we'll talk about all that, their strengths and weaknesses. Now, it's surprising for some that sleep is one of the important factors that we need to look at. And I'll just briefly mention here, sleep is looked at in terms of recharging our batteries. And we'll talk more at length when we touch on sleep. Stress is another big area that affects us, generally negatively. But if you're in love, it affects you positively. If you are in positive territory, as in joy, it affects us positively. So stress affects us as well. And last but not the least, we need to remember that our bodies are made of close to 70% water in some form or the other. So the amount of water in the body and the power it has on our body has to be understood to be able to make the most of it. Having looked at some of the stuff earlier, let us look at how the working of the body is influenced by factors around us that we can change. So let's start from the top. We look at meditation, and we all know that meditation can help conserve our energies, meditation can calm us down, meditation can bring good vibrations to the body, and they can make our bodies more efficient. We have heard about relaxation as well, and there's a lot of confusion for people between relaxation and meditation. Meditation is basically very high level of relaxation. But I have put relaxation in here just to understand that if I just sit back and relax and calm down, then I'm still helping my body take a break. Oil pulling is one of the techniques in naturopathy where you use oil, put it in your mouth and do certain exercises, and that is supposed to get rid of the toxins every morning from your system and excrete them out. Shivambu is urine therapy, where urine is used as treatment, and that we have found to be quite powerful in changing our body towards better health. And last but not the least, vibrations and sound. And we all know that if I have very loud music close to me, enough for me to shake literally, I don't like it. But if I have soothing music, beautiful lullabies sung around, or soft sound of breeze flowing or water flowing, we love it. So vibrations also influence our body. So today's focus has been mainly about immunity preservation, and we are talking about how we can preserve our immunity. Immunity development and immunity growth we'll talk about in the next video, and I'm going to use a couple of examples to clarify what immunity preservation is all about. So, I'm going to read this example and then clarify a bit more in detail. Immunity preservation. A working woman in her mid-30s copes with her hectic life. She is regimented, needs to wake up at 6:30 a.m., sleep by 10 p.m., get her 8 hours of beauty sleep. She copes very well with her life and energy requirements. Now, due to some external issues in her job or at home or some sickness or family commitments or anything else, her routine is disturbed, and within a few weeks of this extra burden, she notices a drained feeling, exhaustion sets in, poor performance at work may be noticed. She starts feeling weak and sickly, and it mainly linked to lack of top up every night. Because remember, our life has got only 24 hours. So if you're committed to more than the hours of work that you put in, they are generally taken away from sleep. Now, what are we talking about here? We are talking about a woman who is perfectly suited to her job, who has got her lifestyle well in order, who is managing quite well with her beauty sleep, getting recharged every night, and all is well. But like life always has its ups and downs, when a situation arises that makes her lose sleep or have disturbed sleep and not be able to recharge her batteries every night as she would like, suddenly her tight regime is thrown out of kilter purely because of the fact that she is working within her limits and she doesn't have any more reserve energy to cope with it. And her lifestyle was managing her immunity quite well earlier. The second example I would like to take is at the other end, where we have a young person in their 20s who has a hectic life, who manages late nights, copes with hectic work pressures, and feels great about life, very motivated. The supervisor notices them coming to work with dark rings, appearing tired, but still outstanding in their work. The supervisor is concerned and prompts the person who shirks it off and doesn't pay much heed to the supervisor. When the supervisor has to make a decision regarding promotion, he is concerned that the demands of the promotion will be greater on the individual, and he has some concerns which exist as to whether he or she can perform adequately. Now you will notice that there is no objective parameter for non-promotion, but the gut feeling states otherwise. The supervisor basing this on past observations of poor performance after a few years. Such people, he has noticed, generally show up with poor performance, health issues, maybe listless, lethargy, etc., to list a few. What is his experience based on? This is what we refer to burning the candle at both ends, and these are of concern for him. Now, to put this example in objective light and explain it a bit, we have got young people who are working and burning the candle at both ends, at work and outside work. They are already showing signs of tiredness with dark rings and looking tired, but because of the energy they have of youth, they can perform their work well. And for this reason, the supervisor is concerned, and his experience has shown that in the past, people who have been promoted have found themselves lacking because they do not wish to change their lifestyle. Now here we are talking about how immunity preservation is important, and they are at the edge of losing their preservation, the amount of immunity they have, and they may not be preserving as well as they should. The last example I have here is of a young person, 30 plus years old, is well preserved. He looks after his health and ensures he is in top condition to perform all his duties. He responsibly ensures he saves energy as required to provide him with phenomenal ability to put into his work. He is always there to guide others, work hard, long hours, and still full of beans at the end of every day and week. He follows a regimen of good food, clean habits, sleeps on time, exercise and meditation to prepare himself and nurture his creativity, which is essential for his performance. Now you can see from this example that this person is very much aware of how he needs to preserve his immunity and his energies for the work at hand, whether it is his duties, whether it is his after work routine, but he needs to make sure he takes care of himself by sleeping on time, having good habits, eating good food, etc. The classic case here I would like to touch on is about our ex-cricketer Sunil Gavaskar. He had some unusual habits which stand out as compared to other cricketers. Two of them I will list here. Sunil Gavaskar, every time he played in a match, whichever venue it was around the world or in India, on match playing days, he would not go to a disco that night. As much as he loved it, the gals loved it, and he was a wanted personality in those days, he never went to a disco. And when people asked him in later years as to why he didn't, he had a very straightforward, objective explanation. He said, when I go into a disco where there are strobe lights, where there are flashing lights, it influences my eyesight to be affected for my next day's performance. Now remember, we are talking about 12 to 16 hours later, and it still influenced his concentration and his eyesight to the extent that he preferred not to go to a disco on match days. The second thing about Sunil Gavaskar that stands out is he scored a hell of a lot of centuries, but a lot of times, or most times, every time he scored a century and the cheers from the stadium was acknowledged with a bat raised in the air and a cap off, etc., he would then go to the side of the wicket where he was batting, and he would put his hands beside his eyes to make a tunnel and look at the ground and focus himself again. He felt this was necessary to focus and bring back his attention from the distraction of the crowd and the thought of having achieved 100, etc. The other thing he invariably did when he needed to was he would take a fresh guard. This is to remind himself that he has not scored 100, he's coming into bat fresh. So he needs to start taking strike, respecting every ball, not taking liberties just because he has scored 100. Now these are some of the things that stand out of people. Having said all this, we will conclude here on immunity preservation, and we'll continue. The next video will be about immunity growth and immunity development. So till then, thank you very much and goodbye.
Thank you, Anand Bapat, for your valuable information on health. This series is a 12 to 15 part series on developing oneself into a healthy person. This series will educate, guide, and provide support through our online educational and support services to enhance your health. We welcome all queries on email. Here is a brief about Health Siren and how to connect with us. Please subscribe and share our channel if you like this video.
Download app Health Siren for all health solutions at your doorstep.